Oh yes, on the Ortona track, immersed in the last challenge of the 2011 season. An year of exciting challenges, the sixth in a row for the WSK promotion, which organized a grand finale to close the season. A beautiful and elegant gala dedicated to the 2011 champions, the Grand Gala. All of the stars of the seasons were there to be assigned the precious trophies prepared by WSK promotion, won after outstanding races. The champions have arisen from competitions that have already entered into the history of karting and of WSK International. The gala was an exciting and wonderful night that lived its summit in the delivery of the first edition of the Driver of the Year trophy. The 2011 edition was assigned to the Dutch driver Nick de Vries. Little later than a month after that night, engines of the WSK start roaring again for the 2012 season start. The first round is scheduled on the track of La Conca, where the drivers of the Master Series will ignite the WSK season. Muro Leccese, an ancient land that tells the story of proud and brave people who fought against the invading Romans in 300 BC. Later, in 1300, the town takes the name of Borgo Terra, a fortified settlement around Palazzo del Principe, the palace of the prince. During the Renaissance, the building was rebuilt and amended with continued changes, and in 1700, thanks to Baroque embellishments, was transformed into a lordly palace. The two upstanding and opposite churches, built in the square of Palazzo del Principe, are also Baroque, and they are built with the same yellow masonry typical of all the buildings in the city, including the convent of the Dominican friars in the outskirts of the town. The Pugliese land is beautiful and populated by warm and hospitable people. And who comes to Muro Leccese from every part of the world to run at the track of La Conca, house of the WSK promotion, knows that very well. For the first round of Master Series 2012, 252 drivers have gathered from over 48 countries of the world with a goal to conquer the titles offered by the WSK Master Series. The track of La Conca is a flawless jewel. Whenever sun shines on the asphalt of Muro, the drivers of WSK are unleashed on the hunt for new records. The first to take to the track are the first group of KF3 drivers, among which the Italian Antonio D'Angelo obtains the best time. The best time of the second group belongs to another Italian driver, Luca Corberi. Nevertheless, it is a driver belonging to the third group, the Englishman Illot Kallu, who obtains the new track record with a time of 46.274 seconds. There are two groups of KF2 drivers, among which the Dutch Max Verstappen, at his debut in the new class, obtains an outstanding 45.803 seconds, the new track record. His direct competitors are the Norwegian Niklas Nielsen and the Italian Antonio Fuoco. In the Mini 60 class, the battle for the best times rages, until the checkered flag awards the American Logan Sargent with the pole position, featuring a new class record time for the track of 52.491 seconds. When the veteran KZ2 drivers take to the track, the focus of the attention is on the time. Everybody wonders whether the fastest and most powerful cars could succeed in improving the track record time. Italians Loris Spinelli and Marco Zanchetta are among the fastest during the earlier minutes of the session. Then, Jan Miderla grasps the best time. The driver of the Czech Republic takes the lead with a time which grazes the old record. 2 minutes before the end of the session, English Jordan Lennox rises to the top of the ranks. But just when the driver of the CRG team thought he could celebrate his first pole position, the French Charlie Bizalian, behind the wheel of Alonso, snatches a time of 35.295 seconds. This means both the pole position and a new track record. Last but not least, it's up to the drivers of the KZ1 class. The challenge for the pole position blazes. The defending champion Rick Driesen is one of the first in taking the lead. The time of the Belgian driver is first improved by Beitske Visser and then by Armand Converse. The first pole of the season, though, goes to the Dutch Jorri Pex that, at the wheel of his CRG, obtains a time of 45.027, a record of the La Conca track. Lots of drivers which belong to the WSK series are now driving the Formula Championships to continue on the road that leads to Formula 1. Nonetheless, many new names figure in the list of members for the first season round. With the new regulations set by the FIA, a drop in entries had been feared, especially for the Mini 60 series. Data, though, disproved the provisions. What news will be featured in the WSK 2012? We asked to the promoter of the WSK, Luca De Donno.
Iniziata la stagione 2012, siamo soddisfatti dei numeri anche perché quest'anno
This year, we begin the 2012 season with a Master Series. We're fairly satisfied with the number of competitors because this year access to the series was not so straightforward. In fact, the Master Series features Mini 60 and KF3. By FIA new regulations, mini pilots cannot compete outside of their national boundaries. This left us doubtful about the feasibility of this year's Master Series. But right from the start, we noticed that all of the major teams and manufacturers were going to compete in the series. This was a nice surprise for us, and eventually we enlisted almost 240 drivers. The first step in 2012 was indeed positive, because we then have the WSK Euro Series, which already benefits of an open worldwide competition status for the major teams and manufacturers, and we already know that accessions will be plentiful.
Già li sappiamo che le adesioni saranno, tante. La stagione continuerà con una nuova...
The season will continue with a new mini-series, which will be called WSK Champion Cup, which will be held later on this year in the second part of the season. The traditional WSK Cup final will close the season.
Per noi quest'anno è il settimo anno di
This is our 7th year of activity, and it is a crucial year.
fondamentale, perché il settimo anno
In
di
fact,
solito
during the 7th year, one can usually notice whether the series we organized will continue with their success or if they will suffer of a setback.
dobbiamo dire che invece
We have to admit that until now, all of the series are having good success, and the Master one was the first one to give us this kind of satisfaction. We hope to continue the success streak for the upcoming events and for the next years. Drivers have filled the grid of Mini 60 class. 30 very young drivers have set the stands on fire with raging challenges. Among the fastest drivers, 3 Italian names figure. Leonardo Lorandi of Baby Race and Pietro Mazzola and Remigio Garofano of Emilia Cards. Some of the foreign drivers who drew the attention to themselves were the English Max Futrell, the American Delvin De Francesco and the Czech Lukas Podobski. From Mini 60 class to KF3, where we find a beautiful surprise. The young Callum Millett, the English driver of Chiesa Corse, at his debut in the KF3 class, won Saturday's 4 qualification races, proving his worth and his talent. Together with Callum Millett, his countrymen George Russell and Daniel Ticktum have also drawn attention to their performance. 2 victories were also assigned to the French Dorian Boccolacci, Intrepid, and to Luca Corberi, Cosmic. The KF2 class seemed to be more balanced, with lots of drivers obtaining good results. Among them, Max Verstappen has left a particular mark. The KF3 defending champion seemed not to suffer from the class change. During these 3 Saturday's races, he grasped the podium twice and withdrew from the 3rd race while he was firmly leading it. Good results also for Felice Chiene, 2 victories and the 3rd place, and Damiano Fioravanti, Kevin Lavelli, Antonio Fuoco and Tom Joyner, each of them winner of 1 race. The 2 KZ2 qualifying races outline the performances of the Italian Marco Zanchetta, of the Czech Jan Niederla, the Englishman Jordan Lennox and the Dutch Dylan De Vie. It's way too early to say whether these guys will be the protagonists of the 2012 title, but their competitiveness and their skills are beyond any doubt. Marco Zanchetta's victory in the 2nd race was outstanding and decisive, while on the first one Marco was overtaken by Lennox and Niederla. 2 qualification hits were performed for KZ1, the queen of the classes, or, at least, the one with the most experienced drivers. The absolute star was Marco Ardigò. The Tony Kart's driver disputed the 2 qualifying heats without making the slightest mistake. Fast and determined, Ardigò imposed himself in both races with an almost perfect race conduct. During the 2nd run, the Dutch Jorri Pex attempted to surprise Ardigò with the fastest lightning start, but the champion of Tony Kart needed just 2 laps to take the lead and to keep it till the end. 3rd place in the 2 heats was for the Czech Patrick Hayek, who needed to work hard to keep the wild Beitski Fisser under control, leaving her the 4th position. The Belgian Yannick de Brabander raced skillful but unlucky races, while the defending champion, the Belgian Rick Drizin, never really was in the brawl for the first positions. All of those races only had one winner though, the show. Let us now see some spectacular slow-motion passages over the curbs. We skip from the qualifying heats to the pre-finals, starting from Mini 60, the first class to take to the track. The young driver of the baby race, Leonardo Lorandi, is holding the pole position, with Alex at his side. In the second row, Remigio Garofano and Delvin De Francesco. Two false starts have marked the beginning of the race, forcing the starter Alessandro Ferrari to a supplemental briefing. At the third attempt, the race starts, and Leonardo Lorandi takes the lead, in front of Garofano, Alex, Futrell and Mazzola. During the third lap, issues with his kart caused Alex to lose some positions and to drop behind, while Lorandi speeds ahead, gaining time on his adversaries. In the final phase, Mazzola gears up his kart and, with two great overtakes, grabs the third place. Eventually, Leonardo Lorandi easily wins the pre-final, in front of Garofano and Mazzola. In the KZ2 pre-final, two Italian drivers started the race from the front row. Felice Tiene, the poleman, and Speedy, aka Antonio Fuoco, at his side. When the race takes flight, the duel between the veteran Felice Tiene and the novice Max Verstappen sparks. The attention is focused on this couple, who gains a considerable gap on the other drivers in just 2 laps. The challenge between them is vibrating. Tiene leads for 8 laps out of 16, then is up to Verstappen to overtake Felice and grab the first place. Max is already feeling the pleasure of a victory at the first attempt in a new category, but when only 3 laps are left, Tiene makes an hard overtake, taking his CRG ahead of Max's Intrepid. The last 2 laps are thrilling, and finally Tiene obtains a deserved success. Third place for Antonio Fuoco, more than 2 seconds behind the other 2 drivers. Due to too many entries in the KF3 class, 2 pre-finals were performed. In the first pre-final, the English Elliott Callum, behind the wheel of Zanardi, took control of the race with a decision of 1 who is satisfied with just 1 result. Behind the Dino Chiesa driver, the Spanish Alex Palou tried to resist for a few laps to another young British driver, Daniel Tickton. Among the Italian drivers, the best one was Alessio Lorandi, 6th at the end of a race which at a certain point saw him fighting for the 4th position. In the second pre-final, victory goes again to an English driver, the official Intrepid driver George Russell. Russell preceded the Swedish Nilsson and Lucan Corberi, who drove skillfully throughout the final phase of the race. The first round of the WSK Master Series was crowned by 7 different finals. The first 2, on Saturday, starred the drivers of the KZ1 and KZ2 classes. In the first final, Marco Zanchetta is in pole position. The Energy Team driver comes from 2 perfect qualifying hits. At his side, in second grade position, the Czech Jan Midderla, behind the wheel of a surprisingly fast Birelli. Zanchetta is determined right from the start and immediately takes the lead on the race. Hard on his heels, the Czech Midderla and the Finnish Coco. Plenty of drivers, including Lennox Lamb and Loris Spinelli, had false starts at the beginning of the race and were punished with 10 seconds penalty. In just a few laps, Zanchetta and Midderla gained quite the advantage on their opponents. It looks like the challenge for the first position is an intimate question between the Italian and Czech drivers. Midderla tries to overtake Zanchetta several times, but he is unsuccessful. This translates into a gap of over 1 second in the last lap between Zanchetta and Midderla, more than enough to grant Zanchetta the victory. Third place goes to Dylan DeVee, just ahead of Coco and Leonardo Fuoco. The KZ1 final begins with Marco Ardigò in pole position, with Jory Pex at his side. Second row is occupied by Betske Visser. No false starts and good reflexes allow the group to move compactly on the track. At the first turn, Pex is leading the race, just ahead of Ardigò. Few laps are more than sufficient to understand that the fight for the first victory of the season will be a hard battle between Marco Ardigò and Jory Pex. The 2 competitors outdistance the group, giving life to a blazing duel. The overtake that seals the race happens during the 6th lap. Marco Ardigò overtakes Jory Pex and gains a good control of the race. Behind them, Kozlinski, showing a neat overtake, passes Puhaka, winning the 3rd place. Marco Ardigò is the first to salute the checkered flag, winning the first WSK 2012 race, crossing the line ahead of Jory Pex and Arnaud Kozlinski. From the veteran drivers of the KZ1 to the youngest. On Sunday, at 1 p.m., the grid is ready for the Mini 60 class final. Leonardo Lorandi is in pole position with his Tony kart, second place for the top kart of Remigio Garofano. Lorandi takes the lead right from the start, closely followed by a surprising Abruzzi. Following are Garofano, Vaida and James Poole. Few laps suffice to convey the feeling that Leonardo Lorandi really means to take flight and abandon everybody else on the track. The advantage of the baby race driver gradually increases lap after lap. After just 6 laps, the gap between Lorandi and the second driver was already 5 seconds. Eventually, Vaida and Poole forget about Lorandi and focus on each other in the fight for the second place. Meanwhile, in the back rows, Alex is skillfully regaining positions from last up to 9th. During the 9th lap, the battle for the second place flares. The protagonists of this harsh duel are Vaida and Poole, while Garofano retires from the race. The checkered flag signs the triumph of Leonardo Lorandi. A final sprint decided the second place, which goes to the English James Poole, a few thousandths of seconds ahead of Andrei Vaida. The happiness on the podium for the first success of the season for Lorandi, while the KF3 class drivers are taking their place on the starting grid. The English Elliot Callum starts from pole position. Beside him, and his Zanardi kart, George Russell on Intrepid. Luca Corberi, the best performer among Italians, starts his race from the 3rd row. Right in the beginning, Elliot Callum takes the lead, preceding Boccolacci, Tictum and Palou. Corberi encounters some difficulties and slips back in 8th position. During the first lap, Callum tries to gain some advantage on his adversaries, but Boccolacci is chasing hard at the heels of his Zanardi. During the 4th lap, Russell overtakes Palou, earning the 3rd position. In the 6th lap, Tictum loses several positions, slipping to the 7th place, while Callum widens the gap on Boccolacci to 7/10ths of a second. It is Elliot Callum the one winning under the flapping checkered flag, with advantage of 2.5 seconds on Boccolacci. The 3rd place goes to the English George Russell.
Well, I was a bit under pressure at the start, but when Dorian overtook George, I got away, so then it was quite easy from there.
The KF3 drivers on the podium are brimming with happiness, while the drivers of KZ2 are already on the grid. Jordan Lennox Lamb, English official CRG driver, occupied the pole position. At his side, Marco Zanchetta, Energy official driver. When the lights turn green, Zanchetta swiftly overtakes Lennox Lamb and is chased by Douglas Lundberg, darting ahead from the second row. In the second lap, Lennox Lamb attacks Lundberg and takes the second place. The springy start of the Dutch PCR driver Dylan Davy is noteworthy, earning him 7th position from 12th up to 5th. During the 8th out of the 20 laps, the event which changes the course of the race. Lennox Lamb attacks and overtakes Marco Zanchetta, conquering the head of the group. For a few laps, Marco tries to stay close to the Englishman, but the CRG driver is too fast for its energy cards. Behind them, the Swedish Douglas Lundberg is more than 5 seconds away from the head of the race. Jordan Lennox Lamb wins the final, the second triumph in line on the track of La Conca. Second place goes to Marco Zanchetta, the third one to Douglas Lundberg.
Yeah, I mean, okay, in the start Marco was in front and the pace seemed good from him, and then I noticed he started to slide around and maybe the tyres was going. For me, it was a good opportunity to pass and make as much progression on him as I could, and it worked out well, so it's good.
The satisfaction of the drivers on the podium is clear, while the track is ready for the KZ1 drivers. Marco Ardigò is in pole position. Beside him, on his Tony kart, sits Arnaud Kozlinski. Joe Ripex and Mirko Torsellini follow in second row. It's a green light and Ardigò dashes forward, conquering the control of the race. Kozlinski is immediately behind him, and during the second lap, his successful attack temporarily earns him the first position. In the back, a very good start for Paolo De Conto drives him for the fourth row to the fifth position. The challenge between Kozlinski and Ardigò becomes scalding hot. Ardigò regains the lead on lap 4, while Paolo De Conto's Birel pops up from the back alleys of the race. De Conto surprises Kozlinski at lap 6, and during the next lap, De Conto overtakes Ardigò, taking the lead of the final. The reaction of Kozlinski takes 4 laps to take place, but it is unstoppable. During lap 11, the French overtakes De Conto, whom is rapidly overtaken by Ardigò as well, slipping back to third position. The first 3 positions of the race are unchanged until the last lap. De Conto attacks Ardigò in a very close turn and gains second position, with a flashing overtake on 2 wheels. Unbelievable. It is just 2 bends later that Joe Ripex bumps into the Tony kart of Ardigò, ruining the race of both drivers. The checkered flag crowns Arnaud Kozlinski as winner of the race, ahead of Paolo De Conto and Mirko Torsellini, in a surprising third position.
I just started working with a new company. I had a brand new start, and after an excellent second place in the Winter Cup, I won here. I took the first place on a circuit very hard for the materials, for the chassis and the engine. So I trained myself quite hard this winter to be here in a perfect physical condition, and now we can say it's paying back. Today I have to thank the whole team, both PCR and AVG, and the TM for the work done. This victory is for them all.
The last final of the day is the KF3 one, with Felice Etienne and Max Verstappen starting from the first row. In the row behind, Antonio Fuoco and Paolo Ippolito. Etienne starts well, taking the lead in front of Max Verstappen. Antonio Fuoco slightly bumps into an opponent, which sends him spinning round. He will start back from the last position. Felice Etienne does not look like he fears the rivalry with Max Verstappen, but the Dutch driver is right at his heels, breathing down on his neck. The CRG standard bearer, though, keeps cold enough to withstand the pressure. Right behind them, Tom Joyner fights hard against the Russian Rudakov and the Italian Ippolito, gaining the third position. After half of the laps, Etienne has gained a tad bit advantage. Verstappen is not able to keep the pace of the Italian driver. Meanwhile, Joyner strengthens his third position, while Ippolito shows its mold by skillfully overtaking Rudakov and conquering the fourth place. At the end, Etienne triumphs and conquers the first final of the season. Second is the Dutch Max Verstappen, while Tom Joyner confirms his third place. On the podium, a muted disappointment transpires from Verstappen's eyes. The young champion is already thinking of his revenge in Sarno.
Max was very fast here. We have seen it both in practice and qualifying heats. To be honest, I expected that it will be a little bit faster in the final, even if I saw that in the pre-final he had some trouble with the tires. Certainly, I have fixed my kart during the heats. We used the races to try to set perfectly the kart and be ready for the final, and we won it.
At the end of the first WSK Master Series round, these are the drivers' standings. In the Mini 60, Leonardo Lorandi commands with 85 points. The second place goes to Romanian Andrei Vaida, 37, and Devlin De Francesco is third with 21 points. In KF3, the English Elliot Callum commands with 85 points with his fellow countryman George Russell at 55. Third place with 39 points for Dorian Boccolacci. In KF2, Tiene commands with 85 points. The second place with 50 points is for Max Verstappen. Tom Joyner is third with 28 points. Marco Zanchetta is in first place in KZ2 with 65 points. Jordan Lennox Lamb is second with 54 points and Douglas Lundberg is third with 27 points. Finally, the KZ1. Orno Kozlinski leads with 60 points, Marco Ardigo is second place at 35, Paolo De Conto is third at 33 points. The WSK Master Series will return next March the 18th on the International Track of Naples at Sarno.